Hello, Monique. Can you actually see me?
Yeah. And then it really
Okay.
bothers me when I cannot see someone. It's like, okay, I want to see you.
Okay. It is a bit disconcerting, isn't it? If you can't
Yep.
see somebody and you're expecting to
Yeah,
be.
it's like it's only your voice. Actually, I know it's your voice, but I don't know. I need that avatar.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about. Okay, we were talking about different areas, different landscapes for the past couple of weeks. Can you remember? I was asking Rima, can you remember the kind of areas we've looked at in the other sim?
Uh,
We okay.
go ahead.
We were at the valley. We were at the
Okay, we were
mountain area
in a valley, in a
in a
valley,
valley. Oh,
because it kind of encloses you. Yeah. We were at the
okay,
bank,
yes.
but we were in a valley, or we went to a valley, or we talked about valleys. Yeah, we talked about valleys. Yeah.
Yes, that's the simplest.
Yes.
The last one is the simple.
Well,
Avoid
anything that gets rid of
preposition.
prepositions of place is pretty. It's definitely recommended.
Yes, we spoke about uh, mountains. We climbed. I don't know, passed or climbed.
Yeah, we climbed a mountain last week. We lost a
Uh,
few students that way, but never mind. It's like going on a school trip, isn't it? And then you read in the headlines, school trip
teleport,
disaster.
teleport gathered us again together.
Yeah, well,
uh,
apart from Traum, she never did turn up till the session afterwards.
yeah. We
I'd
talked
be in jail.
about
Do you know, if I did that kind of, if I did get that kind of trip in real life with real students, I'd be in jail by now. I really, really would. Okay, and that was last week. We did the mountains. Okay, and we did the valley the week, sort of 2 weeks before that. Can you remember something else we talked about? It was kind of in the valley.
The settlement? Were there as
Yeah, the
well?
settlement, but not so much. We talked about, settlers, settlements. That wasn't the main topic. That just sort of cropped up. It was more the water, the river.
water, yeah.
Yeah, we talked a lot about
Streams,
water.
creek.
Streams, creeks, rivers, ponds, dams, lakes, etc. Now, of course, this is a different kind of landscape that we're on now. How would you describe this as a landscape?
Seaside.
Yeah, we're at the seaside. Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. Ah, dear. Sorry, I couldn't resist it. Okay, now, it's there are many different types of seaside. Okay, so if you are by the seaside, beside the sea, you can say you're at the seaside. But it tends to conjure up a certain picture in a British mind. Can you think of any famous seaside areas in the UK?
Uh,
Is that Bournemouth and
Bournemouth.
Southampton?
Yeah, Muth. Always Muth, not mouth.
Bournemouth.
Yeah, Bournemouth.
Bournemouth.
Yeah. Bournemouth is by the
Bournemouth.
seaside. Yeah. I wanted to buy a coffee shop in Bournemouth. Yeah.
You wanted to
Yeah,
buy a
well,
coffee
yeah,
shop,
I actually wanted to
oh,
buy a coffee shop in Bournemouth.
and why you didn't?
Ended up in Germany
Oh, yeah.
without my coffee shop, not even in England. But yes, Bournemouth's very famous seaside resort. So If you want to indicate that the area of seaside you're in is sort of built up with cafes, bars, ice cream shops, then we tend to call it a seaside resort. Okay. So Bournemouth is a seaside. As Shiny and Monique, have you heard of Bournemouth?
No.
Okay. That's all right. It's not a crime.
They're playing Premier League, Monica.
Good.
Glad.
You see how following a sport can really help you with your language. It's
That's right.
it was a Victorian. The Victorians actually made going to the seaside popular, and they are responsible for many of our famous seaside resorts. They built. It was part of the industrialisation, in all honesty. The trains, the railways being built. Suddenly the idea of an away day or a break, a weekend away, became popular to get out of the stinky cities that were full of smoke from the factories they were building inland. Okay, so this idea of fresh air being good for you, taking the waters. Have you any idea what it might mean, taking the waters? What if you take the waters? It's a weird thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Swimming, no?
Actually, no. A lot of the famous historic seaside resorts in the UK had springs, mineral springs in them. And people would go there to take the waters, to go bathing in the sea, but also to drink this rather brackish, nasty tasting water because it was suddenly decided it was good for them. Okay? I believe
Good
Bournemouth
for
was one of
kidney.
them.
To drink the water, you mean?
Yeah, not the seawater. It would be some kind of natural spring. Okay?
Yeah.
So we've got different kinds of water that you can drink. You don't drink seawater. Okay, you just
Yeah, I
don't.
know.
Hello,
Like,
young guy.
Base, but they also base there. I mean,
Oh, April's just turned up. Right,
go into
April,
the
get off
water.
my sandcastle. Oh, April's completely grey for me. Is she grey for you guys?
Yep.
Yeah. April, you're grey, but never mind.
Like, do they drink this water? Like, we have also like I don't know how to call it. Like when people have like a little stone in their kidney to like to get rid of it, like to drink as much as they can. This kind of like mineral water with some kind of, I don't know which chemical element they are consist of, but they're good for health. They drink it too
Yeah,
much
I mean,
because
sometimes they bathe in it as well. Taking the waters it's like a spa resort. So some seaside resorts in the UK are also spa resorts, a spa resort. And you get spa resorts all over the world nowadays where you take the waters. You can soak. It's thought to make you healthy. Okay.
But also they bathe in there. That's
Yeah,
my. I mean,
yeah.
two things.
People will bathe in
You.
anything if you tell them it's good for their skin. Yeah. Mushed
That's
up.
that's okay,
grape.
and I can do that. But also
Mud.
drink that water.
Yep. I'm not sure if you drink the same water you bathe in, but
That's my question.
yeah. But yes, this idea, it is called to take the waters. Yeah, my doctor sent me to take the waters. And you can do it in Germany. You can do it in Germany. You can go and take the waters in Germany. There are spa resorts all over Germany. and you even pay a fresh air tax in some areas in Germany.
Oh my God.
Yep, they charge you. You say you don't. There's no charge for fresh air. Oh well, in Germany there is. Okay, so the seaside can be just being by the sea. I do like to be beside the seaside. Oh, I do like to be beside the sea. Oh, I do like to walk along the prom. So, Shiny and April and Tough Guy are standing on the promenade. Monique and I are sitting in the sand, or sitting on the sand, doesn't matter. And Rima is standing on the beach. Okay. So we've got beach and promenade. Not all seaside places have a promenade. So sometimes you're just at the seaside and it's very barren. There are no shops. There might be a little ice cream van up on a cliff somewhere. And you get a lot of the same words that we've been describing in terms of mountains and valleys. You know, cliffs. The White Cliffs of Dover. Yeah, Dover is a seaside port. Okay. You've got not so many mountains along the coast, and that's another word. Where the land meets the sea, we call it the coast and the coastline. Yeah? Is that a word you're used to? Coast. But of a weekend, most British families will go, let's go to the seaside. They wouldn't necessarily say, let's go to the coast. In fact, there's a very good BBC documentary called Coast, if you get the chance to watch it. Really nice Scottish guy who literally takes you all around the coast of England, Ireland, Scotland, and even some parts of France, etc. Just to show that it used to be part of England. Okay.
Celine, it's
Sorry for
okay.
asking, but what is then the difference between seaside and coast?
Just what we call it. Seaside is more somewhere you might go for a break or a holiday, and the coast is just a geographical term. It is the coastline, is the bit where the water of the sea or the ocean meets the land. It's the coast. And the coastline is when you look at the map and you follow all the little areas, bays, coves. Now they're both very much bay and a cove. That's very much stuff you find along the coast. A bay or an inlet is where the water starts to come inland a bit. Okay? And it can create a nice protected area where you can play on the beach and you can maybe go windsurfing without risk of being swept out to sea. Now, the coast of the UK is dangerous. Okay? I cannot stress that enough. Please don't join the Birmingham Navy if you ever go to the UK. Don't go walking in the mountains in your flip-flops, and don't go out to sea in a rubber dinghy. Do you promise?
But anyway, they I suppose they will not accept us. How we can join to British Navy?
I know, the Birmingham
possible?
Navy. Anybody can join the Birmingham Navy, Rima. All you need,
Really?
yeah, all you need is an inflatable dinghy. Do you know what I mean by an inflatable dinghy?
No.
Okay. A couple of paddles and some swimming trunks in your case, or swimming costume. For the ladies, bikini even, for Monique maybe. I don't know why I put you in a bikini, but I figure you're a bikini gal. Okay, inflatable dinghy. An inflatable dinghy is a rubber boat. Okay, inflatable because you blow it up. It folds flat in the car. You get to the seaside, you get the pump out, and you inflate it so that it's full of air and it floats. And then you take it out to sea, and then you get rescued by Air Sea Rescue. Okay?
But why Birmingham?
Sorry, Rima?
But why why then the Birmingham Navy?
Because Birmingham's
Why
in the
the
middle of
Birmingham?
England
Yeah.
with no
Maybe.
seaside, no coastline.
Yeah.
And so people come from people come from areas where they don't know the sea. They don't. Now, what's
Yeah,
dangerous
okay.
about the sea? I mean, if we look at our seaside, our coast here, it looks lovely, doesn't it? Yeah, we've got the sand, we've got some
Poor
sand dunes. Yeah, sand dunes. Everybody
Yeah, I
knows
have
what a sand dune looks like.
They tease
Yeah.
them, okay.
the desert. But I have a question, Aline. When, for example, I'm living in Birmingham, and can I say that I'm planning to go to the coast? Is that okay if I say that?
No, you'd say the seaside. We're going to the seaside.
The seaside?
Truly. You might say I'm going to the coast if you were some kind of marine biologist.
Okay.
It's more a geographical term, the coast. It's more a scientific term. And the seaside is what we all go to. Honestly, Brits go to the seaside.
And
Okay,
what is
sand
shore,
dunes,
Lynn?
not a tsunami or a shark, no. April, sorry, yeah?
And what is shore?
The shore, again, we're on a beach now, which is part of the shore. That's just the land by the sea, okay? The coastline is where the land meets the sea, and the shore is the land next to the sea, which could be beach, it could be sand dunes, it could be grassy area, it could be rocks. It's still the shore, okay?
We call it those all. Oh, we have only one word. Coast.
Well, there you go. Now, you can also
So coast.
have shoreline along a large lake or a loch in Scotland, okay? So it's basically the land between very large areas of water, not rivers, that's the river bank, okay? So in the desert you have dunes, yes, you have dunes.
Yep.
And because it's the desert, we associate that with the dunes being sand. But sand dunes along the coast, it looks like you're in the desert. They're like mountains of sand, hills made of sand. And the coast of England and many parts of Europe, there are protected areas where it's sand dunes. You get specific wildlife, you get specific plants, and quite often you're not allowed into the sand dunes along the coast in the UK anymore. They're fenced off to protect the wildlife, to protect the plant life, okay? So have you heard of the Riviera? If I said to you Riviera, the Riviera.
That's Italian word, isn't it?
It is, yeah, we've borrowed it.
I think it's like area near the similar as coast.
Yeah, it's Italian for
Area.
shoreline.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Riviera in Italy, and we do have our own kind of Rivieras in the UK. It's almost a sarcastic word, okay? Normally down southwest, yeah? And Torquay Paynton call themselves the English Riviera. Devon, Cornwall, etc. Any questions?
French also, Ellen?
Yeah,
French
the French
Riviera?
Riviera, exactly. Yeah. And we call it the French Riviera as well, and the Italian Riviera. And it means the seaside. Okay, but it sounds posher. So Torquay, Paynton, seaside resorts, they call themselves the English Riviera. It's to kind of give it a little bit of, I don't know, mystique, cachet, if you like. You can even visit the englishriviera.co.uk website.
We only have Belgian coast. No, we don't have
Belgian coast. You don't
Riviera.
have a Riviera. Oh, that's why it pays to play with words. Okay, now if we were walking along the cliff, there's a lot of coastal paths in the UK. Coastal paths, and they basically follow the coast, and they're quite often public rights of way, and you can do a lot of fantastic coastal walks on holidays in the UK. But of course, you're still by the sea, and you're still the same kind of dangers that we talked about with being in the mountains can apply to the coast and coastal walks. What kind of things might go wrong on a coastal path, can you think?
When it is tight, is that right?
Yeah.
Tight is, what is tight? Yeah, when it is tight.
Can you type
When
it up?
tide come and
Oh, the
tide come
tide.
and
The tide.
tide
Yeah.
come. Yeah, I thought the same.
Absolutely. And that's what gets the Birmingham Navy. They go out on a beautiful sunny day. The water is as calm as a mill pond, and then the tide turns, and before they know it, they're halfway to America. It happens every year. Recently, there was a big story. I don't know if you heard about it in your country, about a surfer, and he'd been surfing, and his surfboard got taken out by the tide, and he really thought he was going to die. He ended up in hospital with hypothermia. He was rescued on the second night out at sea, clinging to his surfboard.
Was it not in the news 2 days ago about
Yes. Oh, yes,
is it
yes. Yeah.
Irish coast, Ellen?
That's
It
right.
was
Yeah.
it disappeared and now it's back.
Yeah, I read it also.
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. I mean, he said he's never going to go, but it happens in all sorts of countries. It's happened a lot. Okay. Again, you're sitting on your surfboard, you're enjoying the waves, the tide turns, and then if you get a rip tide. Okay, there are different types of tide, of course. And the rip tide, they go so fast and they're so strong. Has anybody ever been out at sea in a small boat or a canoe or a kayak? Any of you? Surfing in a dinghy?
Maybe in a dinghy, when you go to one island to another.
Island hopping.
Yeah, yeah, because there are, like a small island, and you can go from one place to another, but they use that as small, but not a canoe actually, but it's more like a jack. But yeah.
And did you
And
have to
it's,
be
of course,
careful? Did you what kind of safety precautions did you take, Monique?
always with the vet, with the safe vet,
Okay. Yeah, safety vest
life,
or
life,
did it float?
of course. Yeah.
The safety vest, did it float? Okay. Flotation device.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Vest. Yep. Hmm.
Yeah. A safety vest could also be just one of those bright coloured vests you can wear. You have to wear them in Europe. You have to have them in the car with you, bright orange or bright yellow. And workers who work sort of building workers and
Yeah.
street workers, they have to wear them as well. Yeah, builders, yeah, exactly. Engineers, that kind of thing. So we actually call it So it's a flotation device. There are many types of flotation devices, of course. A personal flotation device, you could say. There are also water wings. And we also call it a life jacket. Yeah, I mean, sometimes some people do wear when I went kayaking along the coast in Pembrokeshire, I had to wear a helmet, but we were going rock hopping, not island hopping, rock hopping, which means using the sea to ride over big rocks or get stuck on top of them, as I did. Okay, so you had to wear a helmet for that because quite often the boat would get tipped over and you didn't want to hit your head. So life jacket, flotation device, any of those. Good to know. Did you have to worry about the tide, Monique?
You can, I mean, they always have like a special, let's say, schedule or hour or time to do that. But when it's
Yes.
really, how can I say that?
Yeah,
When
there's
the
a
tide is
timetable.
high?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah, exactly.
timetable. Literally a timetable for the
So,
tides.
exactly. So after 6 p.m., you can't go or you can do that sort of trips. And yeah, so you can feel it a lot, because you are, I don't know how to say that in English, when you are really um, deep in the ocean, but I don't know how to say that. It's a different term.
I'm not sure what you mean by deep in the ocean. I always
No,
try to
yeah,
keep
but it's
out
not
of
the
the
same if
ocean.
we are, yeah, but it's not the same if we are just like here, I mean, very close from the beach. But if you are really, more
Far
depth in
away.
the ocean,
Out at sea. If you're
uh,
out at sea.
I'll see. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's that. Yeah.
That's what we. Even if you're on an ocean,
Exactly.
you still say out at sea or
Mm.
a long way from land. Yeah. Because suddenly, when you're out at sea, and the beach, the mountains, everything just becomes land. Yeah. Have you heard the term landlubber? So, who's never been out to sea? Yeah? Who's never been out to sea? Any of you? Never been on a boat? Never been in the oceans? Any of you? Oh, you're all salty sea dogs then. Ah, you've never been. Then, tough guy, you are a landlubber. Basically, somebody who's never been out to sea. Okay? A boating person, a salty sea dog might call you a landlubber. Okay? So, all of these words, okay? Seashore, seaside, beach, coast, waterside, sand. They all kind of shore. They all kind of merge into this idea of being along on the edge of where the land meets the sea. Okay, and in those areas, of course, you get different kinds of features, if you like. Okay, so one of them, of course, is the sand. I'm building a sandcastle. That is absolutely imperative. If you go to the UK and you go to the seaside, you have to have a bucket and spade. It's obligatory. Okay. You can't not have a bucket and spade when you go to the seaside. I don't know why, but my bucket is floating in the air, so let me just drop it down to the sand. Oh. Has anybody here not built a sandcastle?
Not likely.
Have you ever built a sandcastle?
No,
April?
I'm not that. I'm not such. How do you say it? Such creator? Maybe. No.
Yep, okay, not
No
that creative. You don't
sandcastle.
have to be creative to build. You
Not
just need a bucket and a
not
stand. A bucket and a spade and some sand.
not literally and not figuratively.
Okay. Oh, that's a
Build a
shame. No,
sandcastle.
I don't think you have to be good at it to build a sandcastle. You just have to have a bucket and spade and a willingness to mess about and get a bit sandy. Monique, you say yes with your siblings, yeah? Do you still do it when you go to the
Yeah.
beach?
No, maybe more like a helping my niece, okay, let's do something.
Okay.
But we
And being
do
buried
that.
in
We
the
did that.
sand, yeah.
It was something very common, and we need that picture, and we all have that photograph, somewhere, but we
With
all did
just
the
your
same.
feet and your head poking out, yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I prefer walking on the promenade than in the
Walking
sand. On the sand?
along. Okay, in that case you'd oh, sorry, I'm muted. In that case you'd walk along the promenade or stroll. Because it's a promenade, you shouldn't be in a hurry, okay? Stroll along the promenade. I like doing both. I like strolling along the promenade, looking in the shops, windows, buying an ice cream, buying some chips, sitting, watching the tide come in or go out. But I also like getting, even now at my age, I like building sandcastles. I like writing in the sand. And I like putting rocks, I like balancing rocks as well. I don't know if you noticed just here, there's some rocks that have been balanced. That was probably me. I am a child at heart. Anything else you can do in the sand? Burying people, making sandcastles, writing in the sand. Anything else?
Bring water from the sea, just
No,
put
it makes you
and
sick.
make like a pit. Yeah, I mean, you
Laika
can do
does
whatever
that.
you want to.
No,
Yeah.
Laika does that. She goes running up to the water, drinks it. 2 minutes later, she pukes it all back up again. It's disgusting. You can get sand in your eyes, absolutely. You can get sand in your sandwiches.
Or take a sunbathe.
You can sunbathe, yeah. You can lie on the beach, catch some rays.
Was the best plan.
You can have a picnic. You can, yeah, I hate that. If you go paddling in the sea and you get sand between your toes, and then you have to dry your feet off, or your mum drying your feet off is the worst, because she always goes for the sand between your toes and it hurts. Very good exfoliation. Now, we talked about the tides. Do you know what we call the tides? Okay, so the tide comes in. And a tide goes out. In this case, you'd say the tide is coming in. Or the tide... Can't type, sorry. The tide... can't type. Tide is going out. Okay. The tide. Okay. And in that case, you're in tidal waters. Tidal waters. So what are the two different tides that if you were looking at a timetable you might see?
When the tide is when there is high tide or low tide.
Yay! That's
So
it. Yes, high tide. And the opposite, of course, is low tide. Okay, we also have spring tides. And they're the ones you have to really watch out for too, because if you don't check the tide tables, not your times tables, the tide tables, if it's a spring tide, it might come up higher than you expect. And suddenly you're cut off, you're standing on a rock in the middle of the water, waiting to be rescued. So if you go to the BBC website, you can find the tide tables for the whole of the coast. Okay. Oh. So no excuses for not knowing the tide.
Are they very accurate with this
Yes.
information?
Yeah.
Oh,
They have to
oh.
be. It saves people's lives. I mean, some people go out to sea because it's their job. Some people do it for leisure. It is a big leisure activity in the UK, going to the seaside. Even with the weather we have, you think, but no, we love it. We love it. It's one thing I miss about not living in the UK anymore. You're never very far. You're never more than 2 hours from the sea at any point in the UK. And here in Germany, I'm 8 hours from the sea. Such a long way. Exactly, Monique. Yes. Okay, so let's go to Bournemouth. Hang on, I'm going to have a. You mentioned Bournemouth, Rima. So, if you look at Bournemouth, you'll see that. Let me just see. Okay, I'd like you to go here. Okay, and tell me when the low tide is, and tell me when high tide is. Okay.
On that list.
Yep, find Bournemouth.
Oh, okay. D- Bournemouth is not on this list.
It should be. It
Okay.
says south. And it should
South.
be
Oh,
yeah.
just south. Okay, I am on this.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
I'm on
it should
the
be number
south. Yes. Okay.
37 is Bournemouth. Don't go. It's not alphabetical. Okay, this is not
Okay.
alphabetical. April, you said same as with
Okay.
skiers. What did you mean? I don't think it's a tide
Uh,
table.
Monique has written that's the problem with what people break the timetable. Some have died because of that. There's also with skiers, they get the list of the dangerous places not to go there,
Oh yeah, when they go off
not to
piste.
ski there.
Time.
Off.
They go off piste. The piste is the runs where they've been prepared, and you know there's little chance of an avalanche. But a lot of skiers want to go into the virgin snow. They go off piste, off the runs, and then yes, exactly the same thing. But that's not a time-related matter, really. That's more to do with the marked areas where you're recommended to ski and the marked areas where you're told this is dangerous. But we like danger, you know, we like danger. We always think it's not going to happen to us. Monique, you said something. What did you say?
Yeah, but I was thinking about also the time because there are certain hours when the tide goes higher. So I think it's both places, but also time.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what you mean, Monique.
As I told you, like I said before, when after 6 a.m., sorry, after 6 p.m., no one can go and into the sea or do something, you know, like
Yeah,
maybe
okay,
that
I've
sort
got
of
you.
touristic trips, you know. So you can't. I mean, it's not allowed. But some people, when they break that rules and
They'll do
they
it
have
anyway. Yeah.
high tide, it's really a problem, especially
We
because
even
at
have,
that
I
time.
mean, especially not all round the coast, but in coastal areas where you know people are going to go for holidays, camping, just paddling in the sea. They often have flags that fly and say do not swim because of the dangerous tides. People still go in the water with their children, with their young children. They still do it because it's not going to happen to them. Not in Birmingham, no. They have other issues in Birmingham. But the people from Birmingham, sometimes, and it's a bit unfair to call it the Birmingham Navy. I'm sure that people from Liverpool, Nottingham, all areas And even people who live along the coast and really should know better, you can get caught out. You just have to watch the local news to find, there's always rescues along the coast, especially in the summer in the UK. This time it was the surfer. I mean, he was very lucky. It's not warm. The North Sea is not a nice warm sea. And he was traumatized. If you see his video, oh, poor guy. I watched the video on the news and I was like, that guy needs help. He's got post-traumatic stress. He really thought he was going to die. Even when the helicopter came, it flew over him as if it hadn't seen him. And he really thought he was going to die. And then it came back and that was it. He was rescued and he was lucky. He had a good wetsuit on. He was wearing the right equipment and he hadn't let go of his board. I think the board's been rescued now as well. People who go fishing, yeah, absolutely. But they have to go out. Yeah, that's their livelihood. And fishermen are they go out at sea. And away from sight of shore, away from sight of land to go fishing. And they're out for days, maybe weeks on end, fishing. And then they're out in the big weather, the rain or shine. They're not the fair weather navy. And people who go fishing too, yes, Shiny? Yeah? Okay, so who can tell me when the low and high tide is in Bournemouth today?
Low is low time, but there are two time for the. I suppose yes, that's the low time. It's at 3 a.m. and at 3 a.m. and 14. And high tide is at 8 a.m. and 28.
Okay,
That's,
so a.m., not I.m., a.m.
A.m.
A.m. Yeah, a.m. and p.m. Okay, so low tide today is at 3:14 in the morning, 3:14 a.m. and again at 15:28. Okay, now this is one time when you might use the 24-hour clock. Usually, if somebody asked me the time now, I'd say it's 12:50. Okay, and in an hour, when we're in our session, I wouldn't say it's 13:50. I'd say it's 1:50, and I'd expect you to know it's in the afternoon. I wouldn't even mention PM. Okay. However, when you're talking about timetables, we often use the 24-hour clock because it's more accurate. So 15:28 p.m. Okay, and then high tide is at 8:28 a.m. and 20:41. Okay. So well done. But you do need those minutes. They can be the difference between life and death. And that's when it's at its highest. So between 8:28 and 15:28, yeah, at high tide, suddenly the sea starts to go out. Okay? So you know that between 3:14 and 8:28, the tide is coming in. And you know that between 8:28 and 15:28, the tide is going out. Okay?
But how long do you have to be careful at a high tide? Is
Well,
it
at
the
high
whole
tides,
hour, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute?
you have to know your tides. You have to ask somebody local, and you have to take note of the flags that are flying. Okay? If it's a green flag, it's safe to go swimming. And if it's a red flag, do not go in the water. You can literally, I am not joking, I'm not exaggerating, truly. When you go out, not swimming, just standing, paddling in the water. When the tide starts to go out, you will feel it and it will try to drag you with it just standing in shallow water. And if you're young, or if you're old and infirm and you're not very strong and you're not, it can take you. It really can. So don't even think, oh, I'll just go paddling. I won't go past my knees. It will sweep you away. It's amazing. It's so powerful. Do you believe me or not?
It reminds me of my, actually not my, I'm gonna say that. It was a relative actually, and it was an old man, and he was floating on the sea, or in the sea, and he was there and just looking, I mean, on his back. But I mean, you can't do that in the sea, So when we were all on the beach, and we were, oh my God, where is that guy, So
Yeah. Oh,
when
no.
he was really far away, and I'm talking about an 80-year-old guy. Oh my gosh, we were,
What did you do?
come on here. No, my brother and hubby, they just, come here, and because he was, of course, an old guy, and but it's so hilarious. I mean, it was hilarious at the same time, but he thought that he was like in a swimming pool, and I think that see, it's really a respectful thing, and it's you need to I don't know, to fear somehow, because it's really dangerous if you don't know even how to if you don't know swim or something like that.
Yeah, but even strong swimmers. Even and
Uh-huh.
this surfer was a strong swimmer. He was he was out on the big waves, and he knew what he was doing. But even he got caught out because he got himself. He reckoned he was about 100 meters from land at one point. He was able, when the tide turned, he was able to try and paddle his surfboard back to land, and he got within about a meter of the land, and the tide turned again. Whoosh! He was out there again. Second night, he would have probably died. Just before the second night, when they would have called off the search, they found him. Neptune is there,
So
yes. Not Neptunus, Neptune, we call him.
he probably thought so close, but
So
immediately so
far,
far away.
absolutely.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've been at sea in a dangerous situation, and it's not nice. You really, as you said, Monique, it's fear, but it's respect as well. You need to respect nature,
Yeah.
and you need to respect
Mm-hmm.
nature everywhere. I mean, you see people when it's spring tides in the UK, there will be warnings. Don't go too close to the edge of the, not even in the water, at the edge of the water, because those waves on a spring tide, if there's a storm, they will take you. They'll just sweep you off the promenade as you're taking your selfie, and you're gone. That's it. And there are, again, videos online, on YouTube, etc., where people have gone, oh my God, look at that person, what's she doing? And then suddenly she's gone, or he's gone. And it's every year the same thing seems to happen. I mean, there are things that happen in
Uh,
life where we can't help it, we're powerless. Walking across the road, bus runs you over. I mean, not a lot you can do about that. But there are times when you put yourself at risk, just being, not having informed yourself of the risks. And I think that's silly.
And unnecessarily, because it's, oh my gosh, during, vacations or holidays is, and you see, people drown there, or kids, is like, my gosh.
Yeah, and of course we're getting a lot of problems with the sea levels themselves. We were talking about before, um, and yeah, the sea levels are rising and the weather's changing, and I do wonder sometimes if might not be more tidal waves. Okay, and you can get tidal waves. They're like tsunamis, but not as devastating. But a tidal wave, when that hits you, that's pretty dangerous. Oh, that's right. I was trying to think of the word for this feeling when the water looks smooth on top, but underneath you can feel it pulling you, and it's called the undercurrent. Okay.
when it tends to bring you to the to some kind of whirl,
Sorry, Rima.
that current, like that current drag you into some kind of how do you call it, whirlpool.
Whirlpool can do, but it can just drag you out to sea, or it can just drag you down the river into the rocks. You think you're in control, and then the undercurrent or the undertow grabs you, and it's not at the surface of the water, it's under the water. You can't see it, but you feel it, and you can feel rocks hitting the back of your legs because it's actually bringing all the rocks and pebbles and seashells with it. It's the undertow, the undercurrent, the bit you can't see. You think, oh, look at that lovely calm water. I'll go for a swim. Buff, you're gone.
But if your coastline, for example, 5 kilometer long, I don't think the whole 5 kilometer has the same high tide.
No. You can
But
have cliffs,
how long
you can
then?
have low areas. What do you mean?
So, for example, here in this place, if I go to the sea at this place, and then, oops, sorry, Rema. And here is high tide, but if I go there,
Where's she
maybe
going? Where's she off to?
there isn't.
Well, yes, the coastline changes. I mean,
I'm sinking in the sand.
okay, well, I've just asked Google. Okay, and if you take all of the islands as well as the mainland of the UK, we have islands, we have the mainland. The mainland is Scotland, England, Wales, but there are islands around it. So if you take the bigger islands and the UK itself, the coastline is 12,429 kilometres. Now, some people say, what is the coastline? Is it the bit that's always dry, or does it change? Okay, and I would say that the coastline is the bit that stays dry, that the sea never reaches regularly, okay? Because the coastal paths tend to stay dry. Of course, if you get a freak wave, a tidal wave, or very high spring tide, then it might get covered in water, it might get flooded. But generally the coastline, the bit that stays dry. And the shore, yeah, we've also got the shoreline, okay? You can have the shoreline.
But is it, how did you say it, 12,429 kilometers?
Yeah, I haven't measured it myself.
Okay, but is it, I suppose that it's some kind of a way or a road near the sea?
No, just the actual land.
Coastline.
Yeah,
coastline.
the land. You might find paths. There are as I said, there's coastal paths around most of the UK, but obviously around some parts it would just be rocks, fields, and cliffs. Okay.
But that is not interrupted, like that is continually.
Pretty much, yes. And you have to walk inland
distance.
and out again as you get coves and bays. It isn't a straight line, of course.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to answer Shiny. Shiny, can you hear me? It's about spooky fisher boats. Fishing boats. Okay.
Fishing boats.
Fishing boats.
Yeah. Boats
Spooky
for fishing
fishing
in.
boats in Japan. Seemingly, the last time, there are a lot of spooky boats. So boats that floating, but nobody there. There are only dead body in that boat, and seemingly. People think that there are North Korean militaries who were forced to go fishing to look for food, but they didn't know how to fish because they are militaries. And so that's why they died in boats, and boats floating to the coast of Japan, and they call it spooky fishing boats.
Ooh. I'd not heard of this. Shiny, have you heard of it? No need to frown. Me neither. Mystery ghost fleet washes up in Japan. 11 ships. Ooh. Oh no, there's ones full of bodies. Oh, I didn't want to know about this, April. Ew. Ghost boats. Full of skeletons. It's all from 2015 and nothing since, so who knows? And it's all around October, November. Makes me suspicious. That's Halloween. Okay, North Korean. Yeah, maybe refugees that have not known what they were doing, and yeah, it's... Oh, that's awful. Oh, thanks, April. Cheers. Okay, next week we're going to do some reading in this session. We'll be back by the seaside, and we're going to look at some of the things that people do for pleasure by the seaside, okay? But we're going to have a bit of fun with it, okay? It's a sort of tongue-in-cheek look at the seaside, all right? So come ready to read next week, all right? Okay? And if you have any
I
questions,
think that
I'll put together a word list of some of the terms we talked about today, of course. But if you have any questions in the meantime or anything you'd like to add, then go to the forum. Rima, you were going to say something?
Yes, when I read something about Bournemouth, I think that I read that Clive Owen and Christian Bale have or had some kind of apartments there, and you could be their neighbor.
Oh, wow.
But you decide.
Or avoid it. Well, I hope you're impressed with my lovely sandcastle. Our lovely sandcastle,
Yes.
Monique. Look at the lovely sandcastle we built.
Perfect.
It's magnificent. Okay, so on that note, we will finish. I'll be in the jam session in half an hour-ish, 25 minutes. And we are going to continue looking at hipsters today. Now, I've put a couple of videos up in the forum and in the Google Plus group. So try to watch them before the session. We'll be discussing the second one, okay? The one that's 10 things that might make you a hipster, okay? And we're going to discuss whether you might just be a little bit of a hipster yourself, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll see you there. If not, I'll see you in the next session you come to. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys. See you there.
Thanks you. Bye.
So if you want to indicate that the area of seaside you're in is sort of built up with cafes, bars, ice cream shops, then we tend to call it a seaside resort. Okay. So Bournemouth is a seaside. As Shiny and Monique, have you heard of Bournemouth?
No.
Okay. That's all right. It's not a crime.
They're playing Premier League, Monica.
Good.
Glad.
You see how following a sport can really help you with your language. It was a Victorian. The Victorians actually made going to the seaside popular, and they are responsible for many of our famous seaside resorts. They built. It was part of the industrialisation, in all honesty. The trains, the railways being built. suddenly the idea of an away day or a break, a weekend away, became popular to get out of the stinky cities that were full of smoke from the factories they were building inland. Okay, so this idea of fresh air being good for you, taking the waters. Have you any idea what it might mean, taking the waters?
Uh, mountains we climbed. I don't know, passed or climbed.
Yeah, we climbed a mountain last week. We lost a
Huh?
few students that way, but never mind. It's like going on a school trip, isn't it? And then you read in the headlines, school
Teleports,
trip disaster.
Teleport gathered us again together.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
apart from Traum, she never did turn up till the session afterwards.
yeah. We
I'd
talked
be
about.
Do you know, if I did that kind of, if I did get that kind of trip in real life with real students, I'd be in jail by now. I really, really would. Okay, and we, that was last week. We did the mountains. Okay, and we did the valley the week, sort of 2 weeks before that. Can you remember something else we talked about? It was kind of in the valley.
The settlement?
Yeah, the settlement, but not so much. We talked about, settlers, settlements. That wasn't the main topic. That just sort of cropped up. It was more the water, the river.
Water, yeah.
Yeah, we talked a
Mhm.
lot
Really
about
streams,
water.
creek.
Streams, creeks, rivers, ponds, dams, lakes, etc. Now, of course, this is a different kind of landscape that we're on now. How would you describe this as a landscape?
Seaside.
Yeah, we're at the seaside. Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. Ah, dear. Sorry, I couldn't resist it. Okay, now, there are many different types of seaside. Okay, so if you are by the seaside, beside the sea, you can say you're at the seaside. But it tends to conjure up a certain picture in a British mind. Can you think of any famous seaside areas in the UK?
Uh,
Is that Bournemouth and
Bournemouth.
Southampton?
Yeah, Muth. Always Muth, not mouth.
Bournemouth.
Yeah, Bournemouth.
Bournemouth.
Yeah. Bournemouth is by the seaside, yeah. I wanted to buy a coffee shop in Bournemouth. Yeah.
You wanted to
Yeah,
buy
well,
a coffee
yeah,
shop,
I actually wanted to buy a coffee shop in Bournemouth.
and why you didn't?
Ended up in Germany
Oh, yeah.
without my coffee shop, not even in England. But yes, Bournemouth's very famous seaside resort. What if you take the waters? It's a weird thing to say, isn't it?
yeah.
Swimming, no?
Actually, no. A lot of the famous historic seaside resorts in the UK had springs, mineral springs in them. And people would go there to take the waters, to go bathing in the sea, but also to drink this rather brackish, nasty tasting water because it was suddenly decided it was good for them. Okay? I
It's
believe
good
Bournemouth
for
was one of them.
kidney.
To drink the water, you mean?
Yeah, not the seawater. It would be some kind of natural spring, okay?
Yeah.
So we've got different kinds of water that you can drink. You don't drink seawater, okay? You just
Yeah, I
don't.
know.
Hello,
Like,
little guy.
Bathe, but they also bathe there. I mean,
Oh, April's just turned
uh,
up. Right,
go into
April,
the
get off
water.
my sandcastle. Oh, April's completely grey for me. Is she grey for you guys?
Yep.
Yeah. April, you're grey, but never mind.
like, do they drink this water? Like, we have also like I don't know how to call it. Like when people have like a little.
Hello, Monique. Can you actually see me?
Yeah. I don't know. It really
Okay.
bothers me when I cannot see someone. You know, it's like, okay, I want to see you.
Okay. It is a bit disconcerting, isn't it? If you can't
Yep.
see somebody and you're expecting to
Yeah,
be.
it's like it's only your voice. Actually, I know it's your voice, but I don't know. I need that avatar.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about. Okay, we were talking about different areas, different landscapes for the past couple of weeks. Can you remember? I was asking Rima, can you remember the kind of areas we've looked at in the other sim?
We okay.
Go ahead.
We were at the valley. We were at the
Okay, we were
mountain area
in a valley, in a
in a
valley,
valley.
because it kind of encloses you. Yeah. We were at the
Okay,
bank,
yes.
but we were in a valley, or we went to a valley, or we talked about valleys. Yeah, we talked about valleys. Yeah.
Yes, that's the simplest.
Yes.
The last one is the simple.
Well,
Avoid
anything that gets rid of
preposition.
prepositions of place is pretty. It's definitely recommended.
Yes, we spoke about